Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast. That is, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot with Alicia Finley and Kim Strassel. Kim, let's turn to Donald Trump's cabinet nominees. So far, only one, Matt Gaetz, for Attorney General, was turned away. He didn't even get a vote. That was the one nominee who turned out to be too much for Republican senators to take. Everyone else, we still have some crucial votes on the Senate floor to come up this week, but Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, RFK Jr. for HHS, Kash Patel for the FBI, Lori Chavez DeRemer for the Labor Department, all look right now as if they are headed for confirmation in the Senate. And personally, I would have thought that at least one of those, probably RFK Jr. at least, would have gone down. Kim, how do you explain this this success by Trump, which is, I think, exceeds even what Joe Biden had in his first term?
Well, yes, just by the numbers, this is quite striking. Donald Trump has had 13 of his major nominees confirmed. To put that in perspective, 8 years ago, the equivalent number was 6. So Republicans are definitely knocking this out of the park, and they are doing so, yes, even compared to Joe Biden. Last week, at the end of the week, Senate Majority Leader John Thune teed up 5 more for this week, which include Tulsi Gabbard, as you note, RFK Jr., also Kelly Loeffler at the Small Business Administration, and Lutnick at the Commerce Department. So they're going to continue on this streak. And here's what I put it down to, Paul. A lot of attention has been focused on the pressure online and threats of primaries if senators don't go along, and the sort of pressure from the Donald Trump base. But when you talk to everyone, what's really happening, and I have to give him credit. Look, I have some issues with some of these nominees, but as a strategy, this has been wise. It's been backroom personal persuasion led by J.D. Vance, former senator, obviously, but with a lot of really close ties to members there, and also an enormous commitment by John Thune and his deputy, John Barrasso. And every single time one of these senators has expressed concern, for instance, Bill Cassidy had some really big issues with RFK Jr. vaccines. What they've had is this sort of swooping in, and it hasn't been threats. It's been, what do you need to get to yes? How can we help you land in a comfortable spot? And so far, that is working. You saw it in particular with Tulsi Gabbard. Susan Collins has already come out to say she'll support Tulsi Gabbard. Todd Young, who was another person they were worried about, he's already a yes. I see that nomination as essentially confirmed. And so this has been not the usual Donald Trump threatening. It's been a lot of behind the scenes persuasion and convincing.
Well, okay, Kim, I think there's something to be said for that, particularly the Thune and Barrasso. Thune wanted to demonstrate his ability to Donald Trump that he could get his nominees over as he's a new majority leader, and they didn't want to start out on a bad foot there. But I have to say, persuasion works a lot better when the threat of the mega media machine, and I mean, let's do the lineup. Bill Cassidy, up in 2026. Joni Ernst, up in 2026 for re-election. Tom Tillis, up in 2026. Susan Collins, if she runs again, up in 2026. And, they all would potentially face primary challengers. Cassidy already has one because he voted to impeach Donald Trump before, not impeach, convict in the Senate. So I think it had to be in the back of his mind that he didn't really want to pick another fight with Donald Trump.
Can I just say, I agree with you, totally agree with you. That is the setting for this stage. But it is also possible if you just go in both guns blazing and say, we're going to take you out, that you push someone into a corner where they feel that they have to sort of push back or they look like a pushover and can get them in a more difficult difficult spot. So I'm just saying that the combination of those things, I think, has been quite effective for the Trump team.
Well, Trump did not himself go after any of these senators, and which was a remarkable restraint, although I think you would have unleashed Trump if they had decided to oppose one or the other, and one of them had gone down. So, I mean, I guess my thinking here, Alicia, is that, okay, well, this is a pretty impressive demonstration of political muscle. It probably has a lot to do with the 53% approval rating as well that Trump has, and a much higher approval rating among Republicans. But now they got to live with them. These guys. And, I'm particularly thinking about RFK Jr., who could do a lot of harm at the Department of Health and Human Services. What are you going to look for if RFK Jr. is confirmed, as it looks like he will be? What should we be watching?
Well, I think the hope from a lot of Republican senators is that there will be others in the department, the Marty McCary at FDA, Jay Bhattacharya at the NIH, and then the Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill, who will kind of hem him in and prevent him from going too wild and removing vaccines from the vaccine schedule. Now, he's already made a lot of promises, including to Bill Cassidy, apparently, that he won't touch vaccines. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see about that. I'm not sure he could restrain himself any more than Trump can restrain himself. I do think there will be concern that he's going to go, especially on the COVID vaccines, and may start picking on Peter Marks, because people who were unhappy with how the COVID vaccines were handled really have it out for Peter Marks at the FDA, who heads the biologics unit. And so I think one thing to watch is that relationship in particular. Peter Marks has actually been really good on a lot of things, including accelerated approvals of treatments, gene therapies for, kids with rare diseases and such. Another thing I think to watch is he's promised not to interfere in other kind of environmental issues and such. We'll see about that. There is a lot of still FDA control over some of these areas that works with the USDA on. So I'm not sure he's going to last the entire 4 years. He may burn some bridges. And so if I were to bet, I would bet that he maybe sticks around for maybe 1 or 2 years.
We'll see. And Tulsi Gabbard will be operating in the shadows by necessity at DNI. That's a post that's secret, hard to know what she will be doing. But at DNI, the job does coordinate intelligence across the 18 intelligence agencies and present them to the president as findings, what the threat is, whether the intelligence finding has high confidence, medium confidence, low confidence. But it's essentially a threat assessment agency, Kim. And what my concern is given that Gabbard's many years of essentially attacking U.S. policy around the world, that she will understate threats or basically say, well, you don't have to worry, say, about the Iranian nuclear program because it's contained, or you don't have to worry about the Chinese threat here or there, because she doesn't want to have to confront adversaries. And I think that's one risk. The other one is I worry what would happen inside when she's trying to counter Mike Waltz and John Radcliffe, Mike Waltz, NSC advisor, Radcliffe at the CIA, who I think have a much more realistic view of those threats.
Yeah, what you want from a DNI, kind of like what you want from a chief of staff, if somebody who's going to play block and tackle of all these different agencies, and the synthesization is really important. But you also want someone who's willing to go to the president and say, sorry, we really do have a problem. This is very bad. This might not be a choice you want to confront, but it's one that you have to. And the worry there is that her entire career has been such that she would rather disengage from the world, and that her own predilections that way are going to lead to Donald Trump not getting the whole truth. I actually am kind of hopeful in that there are going to be those other voices, as you know, Paul, Mike Waltz, and others around, and that they will be providing a check that if that information is not being presented to the president in a way that is realistic, that he's going to hear it from another realm. But that, I think, gets to this question of Donald Trump agreed to put both RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard in these positions largely because of their support in the campaign, not necessarily, I do not believe, because he thought they were the right people for the job. And so while the first test might be confirmation, the ongoing test will be, can they continue in those positions, or do they lose the president's favor quite quickly?
Yeah, these were strictly transactional appointments. You support me, you get a cabinet job, pure and simple. I know for a fact Trump has said that to various individuals when they've asked him about how he could name these guys. All right. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Alicia. We're here every day on Potomac Watch. Thank you all for listening.